Good evening and welcome to today's Tropics for July 24th, 2020. Please note I am not a meteorologist and this video is just a collection of my thoughts and opinions about the storms I'm talking about. And for any decision making, please consult the National Hurricane Center or your local officials. So the tropics are getting very busy now. Looking at four different storms today. First is Tropical Storm Hanna, which is intensifying in the Gulf of Mexico and is forecast to landfall in southern Texas tomorrow. Looks like in the early afternoon. Tropical Storm Gonzalo, which currently is struggling and is forecast to approach the Windward Islands soon. And also Hurricane Douglas, which looks to threaten Hawaii during this weekend. And a quick look at Invest 92L here, which poses no threat to land in the very near future, but may down the road. So looking first off at Tropical Storm Hanna. So this morning it was a bit more lopsided, and that's because there's a bit of northerly shear from a ridge in the plains, and there's also some continental dry air that was getting into the inflow and basically causing Hanna to have almost all of its convection to the southeast of the low and almost none to the northwest. This is now changing. Hanna has organized throughout the day, and trends aren't really looking good for the coast. A lot of the models are trending stronger, and it's already up to 50 knots. And you can see it is looking a lot more symmetrical now, so that organization has been able to, looks like it'll be able to cause more intensification in the future. Looking at infrared imagery, see how deep the convection is right now. And there's one important thing to note here. There's a lot more convection firing off near the center, so it's more concentrated. And you can see that, for example, this one hot tower here is actually moving up shear. So that means it's organized sufficiently to actually go against this shear and drier air, and which, speaking of which, at least, is trying to get in but seems to be struggling. But trends definitely do look like it is getting stronger than forecast. So if you are in the southern Texas coast, definitely keep an eye on this storm in the next day or so as it makes landfall tomorrow. Taking a look at water vapor, you can see that ridge that's currently over Kansas. This upper ridge was at least shearing Hanna, and you can see why, because it is pushing northerly flow down into Texas, and that means you had some of that pushing into the areas where there was little convection with Hanna, but as I said earlier, it's starting to overcome the effects of that shear. And as you can see, the dry air here too is getting caught in the inflow because it is a very large circulation. So it took some of that in and is struggling a bit today, but it seems that that period is over. This upper ridge will continue to be relevant though, because if Hanna is a stronger storm than expected, it'll feel a bit more of this northerly flow, and it might go a bit more south than forecast. So we'll have to see how much more, if it is more strong than forecast, and see what that will entail for steering. Looking at the water vapor, or not water vapor, but looking at the radar here, Houston radar, the core region isn't super organized yet. You're not seeing like an eye wall, but we watched today this area go from pretty dry with some curved banding trying to get in but drying out. But you can see that the center is pretty much totally full of precipitation now, and so that means it's moistened the area, and you're going to get a more favorable environment for curved bands to come in here and try to form an eye wall. So it definitely looks like Hanna has organized and gotten that dry air out and started to shrug off the effects of that drier air and shear. There's a scheduled recon mission that was supposed to go into Hanna around now, but it looks like they're being diverted for a search and rescue mission northeast of the storm, and Obviously, that takes precedence over looking at the data, and hopefully they are successful in on their search and rescue mission. Looking at the near-term forecast, so again, the GFS has done terribly with it. It's lowballing the storm a lot, but this gives you a good idea of shear around it, and you can see that northerly flow from that ridge. But you can see that Hanna will have a decent anticyclone over it, so won't really have a lot of shear, especially as it strengthens and is able to push away that shear through its own outflow. So it doesn't look like shear is going to be a major problem, unfortunately, for Hanna in the near future before it landfalls. Here's the official National Hurricane Center cone, and you can see it's now forecasted to be stronger. There's a tropical storm warning now that extends from just south of Galveston to the border of Mexico, and in the middle of that, a hurricane warning where the core looks to move ashore. You can see, yep, there is now expected to be a 75-mile-per-hour hurricane as it makes the landfall. So, unfortunately, this is, in addition to being a rain threat, as it has always been forecasted to, it does look like, especially near the center, that this will also be a wind threat because it is getting stronger and seems more likely to be a hurricane. However, with Tropical Storm Gonzalo, there's actually better news for the residents of the Windward Islands. Recon went into Gonzalo earlier this afternoon and found that the effects of dry air were a lot more than thought, and the pressure is much higher than initially thought. It was initially thought to be 1,000 millibars, but it was only down to 1,008, and it looks like it's weakened even further. See, it's only really consists of this area of convection here, this blob, but it doesn't really have any good structure below. And as it starts accelerating into the Caribbean, it's going to continue dealing with dry air, and also struggle to stay closed as it's quite weak now. Looking at the current recon mission, it's probably not even a tropical storm at this point. It looks like a tropical depression. And at the same time, you can see that there's some southerlies here, and while there are westerlies, and this does seem to be a tropical cyclone at least still, it has continued to weaken now to 1,010 millibars, and it looks like as it speeds up and looks like it continues to weaken, it might actually open up relatively soon, and that would be good news for people living in Trinidad and Tobago and in the Windward Islands, as that means a weaker storm, of course. At the same time, here's a GFS, which is, again, not doing well. It's way too strong with this. It's initializing like over 10 millibars too strong, like pretty much every run. But again, I'm just looking at the more macro kind of things here, such as shear, and you can see that there's this area of higher westerly shear as a result of very rapid winds from the east at the surface and not really easterly winds aloft. And as Gonzalo tracks west-northwest into the Caribbean, it's likely going to have this shear and is not going to have the low shear it's enjoying right now, so it's likely to continue weakening. And again, with acceleration, it's probably going to open up actually at this point as it heads into the Caribbean. Here's the official National Hurricane Center cone, and you can see it doesn't have much time before it continues to weaken and is forecast to open up in the central Caribbean, although that could happen even sooner if current trends persist. However, at the same time, there are still tropical storm warnings for the Windward Islands to the north of the forecasted track, and that is because the trade wind flow, along with the enhancement from the north side of Gonzalo, may produce gusty winds, and you're probably going to have also squalls coming in. So that is still a risk, but it looks a lot less likely, or even very unlikely, that there will be a hurricane that was predicted a few days ago, or even as recently as yesterday. However, to the south, there are no warnings because Gonzalo will be moving so fast they'll probably be struggling to have westerly winds if it has any at all. So it looks like this area shouldn't get as much wind, but definitely heavy rain and some squally weather is still possible in those regions. Let's take a look at Hurricane Douglas, and this storm looks like it will threaten Hawaii soon. Currently is Category 3, 100 knots, so that's just barely Category 3, but it does look rather impressive right now, and given that the water temperature is getting rather low, it'll start to weaken, it looks like, before it actually hits Hawaii, but there's a small chance with the low shear and the cooler waters that it might be temporarily become an annular cyclone, especially with this large eye and generally axisymmetric structure. Now, it's not a guarantee, but it's something to keep in mind. Right now, it's about at 18 degrees north, just south of that, and just west of 144 degrees west. So if you look at that around here, it's in about 24 to 25 degree Celsius water temperature, so it's definitely a little cool for there to be tropical cyclone. And as it curves to the west-northwest towards Hawaii, it's going to continue to deal with that cooler water, and that's going to keep its make it weaken a bit, and at the same time, or start to bend more to the south as it gets to Hawaii. And with this ridge overhead, and it does look like it'll get a bit stronger as it approaches Hawaii, so it could bend a bit more to the south towards the and possibly make landfall or approach the island. Another thing that might be, or that could start to weaken it, is this westerly shear just to the north. So this is your usual westerly shear that helps protect Hawaii from tropical cyclones coming from this direction, along with sea surface temperatures. And you can see, there's a very strong jet, and it looks like it might start getting sheared as well as suffering from cold water temperatures as it approaches Hawaii. So that is reflected in the official National Hurricane Center track. However, given that it's still a Category 3, it's going to take some time to spin down. It looks like it could be a hurricane even as it gets to Hawaii. However, it does look like it'll weaken to just marginally a hurricane, a Category 1, and then weaken to a tropical storm as it continues on this track. However, it does look like there will be a hurricane that it will be approaching land, and as a result, there are hurricane watches, because as this approaches on Sunday, that is within 48 hours now, so there are warnings, watches going up right now. If you are in this region, please be prepared for Douglas, likely Category 1 or so, to approach your area, and just make sure that you are prepared for the high winds that will come with the storm. Now let's take a quick look at newly designated Invest 92L. So right now it's supposed to pass to the south of Cabo Verde Islands as it is right now, and continue going west. And it does look like conditions will be more favorable for the formation of tropical depression within 5 days. So the chances of that are 50%. It doesn't have any immediate risk to any land masses right now, but it is something to watch down the road, because there are some model support suggesting that some land areas may be threatened within the next 10 days, but it is very early to be looking at this, and please do not take any model solutions like that verbatim. It is way too far out to look at that, especially without a system that is actually designated a tropical cyclone. Looking at this, you can see the convection is quite impressive. It's very deep. There's areas of negative 80 degrees Celsius, and that is pretty impressive for July in the eastern Atlantic, where usually sea surface temperatures are quite cold. And that is just goes to show you that the water temperatures are very warm for this time of year, and so it's able to do this. And a wave ahead of it has cleared out the dry air ahead of it, so it's not dealing with dry air. So it is a pretty impressive looking storm for July in this part of the Atlantic. and it is definitely worth watching in the next few days. Otherwise, the global tropics continue to be quite quiet, especially the Western Pacific. It's very dead lately. If you have any questions or comments about my video, please let me know, and thanks for watching.